Did you know that in some Appalachian counties, up to 90% of the land is owned by corporations or individuals who don't even live there? This statistic reveals a striking truth about one of America's most misunderstood regions. The story of Appalachia is complex, intertwining natural abundance with human hardship. The region boasts breathtaking landscapes and rich resources, yet it grapples with pervasive inequality and economic challenges. This dichotomy raises important questions. How did the situation develop? And why do so few Americans choose to make their home in this resource-rich area? As we explore the reasons behind Appalachia's population decline, we'll uncover surprising factors that have shaped the region's current state. The answers may challenge common perceptions and shed light on the intricate relationship between land ownership, economic opportunity, and community development in this unique part of America. The hidden wealth of Appalachia. Appalachia has a lot of natural resources, like dense forests, rolling hills, and mountains that are full of coal and minerals. Even though it's rich, some of America's poorest neighborhoods are there. This paradox comes from a long history of using resources for profit and from different economic factors. Appalachia's resources have been taken out and sent to other countries for generations, with profits mostly going to outsiders rather than locals. This has hurt the environment and made the economy less stable. The difference comes from patterns of ownership and control by people outside the family. A lot of land in many Appalachian counties is owned by corporations or people who don't live there. This makes it harder for local communities to control their resources and the money they make. The concentration of ownership goes back a long way in history. When money was tight, a lot of people in the Appalachians sold their land and mineral rights to big businesses. Local communities don't get much out of the wealth that is made in their own region because of the imbalance that has been caused. There are a lot of effects from this extractive model. Because of its reliance on industries like coal mining, Appalachia is vulnerable to changes in the economy. When market needs change, communities have a hard time. Also, these industries' dominance has made it harder for other sectors to grow, which is bad for economic diversification. This way of running the economy has a huge human cost. Even though there have been decades of efforts to fight poverty, such as the creation of the Appalachian Regional Commission in the 1960s, many counties in the area are still considered distressed. This ongoing fight brings up important questions about how resource extraction affects local communities over the long term, and how hard it is to break out of cycles of economic dependence. The legacy of exploitation. In Appalachia, the Johnson family's story shows how many people there struggle. For generations, they've worked in coal mines, where it was dangerous and the economy was uncertain. Even though they've worked hard, they can't seem to get out of their horrible situation of poverty. The problems this family has had show how deep-seated the economic problems are in Appalachia and have been for decades. These problems have their roots in the time when big businesses started to control the business world in the area. These companies set up a way to control jobs, housing, goods and services, which made workers dependent on them and in debt. This setup made people less likely to go to school and get involved in politics, which made communities weak and dependent on a single industry. Communities in the Appalachians have been through terrible boom and bust cycles because they depend on industries like coal mining. There are a lot of jobs when demand is high, but when the market changes, whole towns can lose their economic backbone. Because of this instability, the area hasn't been able to diversify its economy or give its people stable long-term jobs. The effects of this kind of exploitation are still felt today. Even though steps have been taken, like creating the Appalachian Regional Commission, many areas are still having a hard time. Appalachia still has much higher rates of poverty and unemployment than the rest of the country, according to the most recent data. These economic problems are made worse by problems in education. Functionally illiterate adults make up about 30% of adults in Appalachia, which is a much higher percentage than the national average. This educational disadvantage makes it harder to get a job, which leads to another important problem: brain drain. As educated and young people leave the area in search of better opportunities, it will be harder for the region to build a strong, diverse economy for the future. The education dilemma. There are big problems with brain drain, but there are even bigger problems with Appalachia's education system. The historically low rate of high school graduation in the region is a sign of deep-seated problems that make it hard to get an education. The problems we're facing are complicated and long-lasting. They are caused by a mix of economic, cultural, and physical factors. Because mining and lumbering are such important industries to Appalachia's economy, formal education often took a back seat to practical skills and finding work right away. This way of thinking has made it so that education isn't always the most important thing. In the Appalachians, many families put a lot of value on family work and keeping traditions alive, which can make going to college difficult. The effect of schools not getting enough money and resources make these problems even worse. Many rural schools in Appalachia have trouble meeting educational standards because they don't have enough money. Appalachian students are at a disadvantage compared to their peers in districts with better funding because they have fewer educational opportunities, old materials, and less access to advanced courses or technology. Because of this funding gap, these underlying problems can be seen in the rates of college attendance and retention in Appalachia. Even though there isn't a lot of information about college attendance in the region, the lower rates of high school graduation suggest that there is a ripple effect on college participation. There is a lack of education in Appalachia that makes it hard for many young people to get better paying jobs that require advanced degrees or to even get into the modern job market. By adding up all of these problems in education, they keep the region's economy from growing. Without educated workers, Appalachia has a hard time attracting different types of businesses and making new jobs. This in turn makes people less likely to go to college because they don't see many reasons to do so when there aren't many job opportunities nearby. To solve these problems in education, we need to look at not only what is taught in the classroom, but also the region's overall social and economic situation. Appalachian communities face unique problems that need to be taken into account by policymakers and educators who want to break the cycle of educational disadvantage and create new opportunities for the future of the region. Isolation, the unseen barrier. Appalachia has some of the most beautiful scenery in the world, but it also has a lot of problems that make it hard to live and grow. The rough terrain that makes for stunning views also makes it very hard to build infrastructure and boost the economy. Many communities in the Appalachians are geographically separate from each other. These places are often very far from major highways and cities because they are in valleys or on top of mountains. This physical separation has big effects on the economy of the area and on the daily lives of the people who live there. For example, people in Whitesburg, Kentucky have to drive 3 hours to get to the nearest big job market. In Appalachia, this kind of thing happens all the time. Road construction and maintenance are hard and expensive to do in mountainous areas. This means that communities are even further cut off from economic opportunities by limited transportation networks. The digital divide makes this physical separation even worse. Today, high-speed internet is necessary for everyday life, but in many rural Appalachian communities, connections are slow or don't work at all. People who live in areas without digital infrastructure are at a big disadvantage because they can't use telehealth services, work from home, or access educational resources. This isolation has very bad effects on the economy. Businesses are reluctant to invest in the area because it doesn't have reliable transportation or internet access, which means there aren't many job opportunities. Residents often have to travel a long way to get specialized medical care because there aren't many medical services available. Out in the middle of nowhere in Appalachia, it can be hard to get even the most basic services that most Americans take for granted. This feeling of being alone keeps up a cycle that is hard to break. Young people leave communities in search of better opportunities, leaving behind fewer people and less tax money. This makes it even harder to invest in much needed infrastructure improvements. As a result, the area has a lot of natural resources, but not enough infrastructure to use them to help the economy grow. Appalachia faces complex challenges, but innovative solutions are emerging. Community-driven initiatives now focus on sustainable development and economic diversification. Adam Wells, an Appalachian community leader, emphasizes the importance of a multifaceted approach. The keystone word is diverse. There's not one thing that's gonna save us. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more updates.